And we get to the appointment and they find that there is no heartbeat. And it was just then that the floor disappeared out from under us. And we just ended up on the unlucky side of a statistic. I can't really quantify, articulate how incredible it is to see a transformation in these dads who are walking through those doors, some of whom are entirely resigned to the fact that nothing can help with what they're dealing with.
From a letter writing perspective, you've taken part in it. What's the one big takeaway for you?
It's such a different approach to put a pen to paper and not to your actual thoughts as we've talked about the things slow down and become almost not easier to process, but process from a different perspective because it's a more slowed down one. And
Welcome to Still Dad Talk, a podcast where fathers share stories of loss, legacy, and love that never ends. Hi, I'm Azher, and I lost my son Hashim 20 years ago when he was born sleeping. For 2 decades, I carried that grief quietly, back to work the next week, looking solid, looking steady on the outside, while on the inside, I was falling apart. It's why I started this podcast, because I believe fathers deserve a space where our grief is heard and acknowledged, where our love is seen, and where we can learn from each other without shame or pressure. Now, this isn't a place of doom and gloom. It's a beacon of hope, because being a dad doesn't end when our child dies. It's a place where our love for our child lasts. So I would love to hear your thoughts. Please pop them in the comments. Share the content with somebody you know it will help, and subscribe to the channel to help it grow. Now, back to the podcast.
Today's guest is someone who decided to do something with life after the tragic loss of his daughter. With me is Rob Ryder. And Rob lost his daughter, Lila, in December of 2017. He's also the founder of Sad Dads Club, a US-based nonprofit organization that runs weekly virtual meetings for grieving fathers located around the world. It's a dad-focused club that literally saves lives by simply giving grieving dads a safe place to be heard. Rob is 8 years into his journey, and today we're talking about what happens when fathers stop staying silent and start building space where grief doesn't have to be invisible anymore. Rob, welcome.
thank you so much for having me here. I am thrilled to spend some time talking about our respective lives since losing our children and talking a bit more about Sad Dads Club. And just thank you for the opportunity. I really appreciate it.
Well, look, I know how busy you are, so I have to thank you for taking the time out to be with me, because this is really important. I know for you, and it's also important for me. It's we're both peas in the same pod, because we both are so dedicated, 100% dedicated to this cause. So I just want to kick off by asking you, tell us what happened with Lila.
Sure. So just over 8 years ago, as you mentioned, we were elated to finally become pregnant. My wife and I had always had dreams of expanding our family, and that was one of the earliest things I can remember that the two of us had connected on was the desire to be parents, the desire to have children. It was something for both of us that we felt inherently lifelong. And so being able to connect on that when we got together was very natural and very exciting for both of us to have found someone that we were so in love with who shared that vision, that dream of being able to have children and expand our family. And so getting pregnant for us was not easy. We did not have for Lila any I shouldn't say we didn't have any serious intervention. My wife, Tahila, did undergo an outpatient procedure. She did also go on certain medication to help with ovulation. So it wasn't something where we decided, okay, we're ready to have kids, and it just happened. We were ready to have kids and start expanding our family, and it wasn't happening. So trying to figure out exactly how we get closer to achieving that dream was a process in and of itself. When I heard that she was pregnant with Lila, I remember exactly where I was. Obviously, I remember being at work and being so happy and being so excited because again, it wasn't easy for us. That's not to say that the excitement that those who have an easier time conceiving isn't equally as profound, but we were just so excited. And as I always say to people, it was a textbook pregnancy. It was so uneventful. It was so boring. It was so every appointment that we went to, and I tried to attend as many as I could, where things look great, growth is great. We were well on our way to December of 2017. And that was when on the morning, it was a Wednesday morning on December 17th. See, I got a date wrong. December 13th. Come on. 12/13. That should be easy to remember. She shares a birthday with Taylor Swift and with Tom DeLonge. I know Taylor Swift is the more popular musician of the two, but Tom DeLonge is the singer and guitarist of Blink-182. So she's in great artistic company. But on December 13th, it was Wednesday, December 13th, 2017, 38-week appointment. There had been no signs that anything was wrong. It was the first appointment of the morning. Tahila didn't notice any pain. She didn't notice any significant decrease in fetal movement. It was just set to be another appointment. We got into this trite argument about whether or not we needed to put the recycling out on the curb before we left, because if we missed the recycling truck. And so everything was so normal and fine. And we get to the appointment and they find that there is no heartbeat. And it was just then that the floor disappeared out from under us. And I'll jump ahead a bit just to say that we had opted for every test under the sun that they could do to see what happened, to try and get an answer, even though no matter what medical response you get from someone, there is never a reason. Even if there's a medical reason, there's no good reason that this happens to anybody. And they did every test they could and determined that there had been a placental abruption. And we just ended up on the unlucky side of a statistic, an incredibly heartbreaking one, and one that I know far too many people have ended up on. And when you start to hear those kinds of numbers and statistics and how, you know, little possibility there is that something like this could happen, it no longer resonates with you. You never think that you're safe. And that will play into later when we go on to expand our family, which we were lucky to be able to do. But that's what happened. We seemingly out of nowhere. And as our doctor told us after doing all the tests and getting all the results back, there was nothing you did or did not do. You
Yeah.
just got really unlucky.
Yeah, I could relate to that. I mean, you were both there when they tested for the heartbeat and everything. So you're both there, right?
Yes.
That's one of my biggest regrets because I wasn't with my wife at that time. I was at work. And you know, I kicked myself just for that a lot.
I I wish there was something I could say that would
Yeah,
relieve you of that
the
guilt,
yeah
because I know other dads who have been in that same position, and I'm
yeah.
sure I would feel the same way. And it's just like, how could we know? We can't, but that doesn't do much to relieve that
No,
guilt that we place on
I
ourselves.
mean, at time, I'm 20 years down the road. You give yourself a little bit of grace and space and say, okay, it's not like I went to do something that I was working, providing for the family. So you have that internal conversations. Just
Yeah.
going back, it's interesting because obviously, with your wife and now you have a son, Dallas. How did you navigate supporting them while, grieving yourself? I mean, this is a big kind of pull on, being a supporter and then being a griever for yourself. Because ultimately, my view has always been that you have to look after yourself before you can help anybody else. How did you deal
Yeah.
with that?
That's a good question. How did I deal with that? I've said this before. I'm going to stop saying I've said this before, because maybe for some people it's the first time they're hearing me say it and there's no
Yeah,
reason. And if somebody's heard me say it before, then so be it. But
yeah,
I think in the immediate aftermath, when it was the most raw, when it was the most surreal, when it was the most unbelievable, was when I needed something to hold on to that I could control, that I could help. because I had been put into such a helpless situation. Lila was gone. There was nothing I could do about that. There was nothing I could do to reconcile with the fact that I couldn't protect my daughter. And so now that my wife had endured a physical procedure and undergone surgery via C-section to deliver Lila, and I felt like I could focus on helping her get better. And that was my way of regaining control. That was my way of of assuming the role that I thought was the most important for me to possess, which was the protector, which was the provider, and reintegrate into that, feel as though I still could be that because I had lost that so wildly when Lila died. It was like I had lost control. I had lost the ability to protect. I had lost my confidence in myself to be the head of the family, quote unquote. I mean, whatever, say adults are in charge, parents are the ones who are the head of the family, but I'm not saying, societally, generationally, historically, it's believed that the man is the one who protects and the one who provides. And so feeling that all kind of spiral away from me and losing Lila, I needed to regain some semblance of control and some semblance of being able to do what I felt was my job and my duty that I had previously failed at. So that allowed me two things: to focus not on my own grief and to watch in real time, to watch her get better physically and emotionally. And that gave me confidence and belief that, okay, I can still do this. I can still fulfill my role. Who knows if that was right or wrong, but I also think at that time that it was so surreal and there was someone right in front of me who was also going through it. And in addition, had the physical component of healing to endure, that I felt like that's my focus. Additionally, I think I had wonderful support. I could give you any number of horror stories around things that people have said and around things that transpired, dynamics with relationships after losing Lila. But I also, as I say, had the fortunate misfortune of having one of my best friends from college who 11 months earlier had a stillborn daughter. And this is Jay Tanzi, his daughter Bella. He and his wife Ellie
He's one of
endured
the co-founders of with you.
exactly.
Yeah, yeah.
And so that same year in 2017, January 31st, he and his wife had lost their daughter Bella. And so I had the fortunate misfortune of having somebody in my life in my geographic vicinity. He was also living in the greater Portland, Maine area. So I had someone there who was going through it. I had someone there who I could talk to about it. I had someone there who was almost a year through their grief journey. And that first year, as everyone knows, is
Yeah,
it's unique.
yeah.
So I think a combination of putting it off a bit to focus on my wife to try and regain control of being a protector and provider while also having another dad with whom I had a relationship. We've been friends since we were 18. We met the first day of college, and at this point, I'm 33 when losing Lila. Um, is that mathing? Hopefully, I'm 41 now. And so I think it was a combination of those two things of focusing on my wife and of also having a built-in outlet for myself, which again is horrible that I had a close friend who had also gone through that, but was also incredibly, incredibly helpful. So much
Yeah.
so, I mean, that dynamic sparked what would become Sad Dad's Club.
Yeah, it's amazing, isn't it? You meet somebody and then they align so closely because of an event, and it's fate or whatever the universe working. It's interesting because when you were talking, I was just re recollecting my grief started when I first received that phone call from my wife, said they can't find the heartbeat, and I just dropped everything and I ran, got in the car, and I had made that decision, Rob, when I had parked up in the hospital when they're going to do a scan again. I made the decision at that point, I don't care about myself. I don't matter. And for decades, I suffered in that space because I made a promise that I will not put myself first. And it's hard. It's a hard thing. And in that, I focused on my family, forgot my son partly. which I didn't want to do. So that's really interesting that you say that. And then having Jay so closely with you, I'd never had anybody. And I guess that's where my next question goes into, in those early days, weeks after losing Lila, you obviously the support came from Jay. A lot of it must have come from Jay, as well as family and what have you. Um, you know, what was missing aside from those elements? What else was missing that in the existing support at that time that you were looking for? What would have helped?
I think my employer at the time fell dramatically short of being able to provide adequate grief support. Yeah, that was a traumatic that, I was given the same amount of time, which I know I'm lucky having heard from thousands of other dads at this point that I was given maternity leave because they effectively said it was a small enough organization, even though it's a large organization in Maine, that, we're going to give you that time, just take that time, and then we'll see you February 1st. And so I believe I had around 6 weeks off. And I just 6 weeks is nothing. You, I think, and I think this is true across the board. I know rather this is true across the board because we've done a survey. And so I've also heard the stories, and it's not just anecdotal, it's data driven that employers are woefully ill-equipped to support a bereaved
Yeah,
colleague when they return from bereavement. And I do feel like I had what I needed in my personal life. In my professional life, there were some unbelievably caring people and unbelievably um, compassionate, empathetic, patient, emotionally aware, with high emotional intelligence people. But there were also people on the other side of the aisle who were none of those things. And it just, that was, and you spend so much time at work. I still, in reflecting when I was full time at these other bigger organizations, that I'm like, wow, we spend a lot of time with these people, our colleagues who we
yeah,
don't know. Like
yeah,
these are strangers who we are put into this kind of pressure cooker with and
yeah,
expected to just get along with and spend all this time with,
yeah,
who may be nothing like us. And that's fine if they're nothing like us. However, in the unique scenario where a colleague is coming back from bereavement, I think there has to be a much greater emphasis, whether it's, and I hate these like, professional trainings, like give me a break. Like no one wants to do a professional training, but I think that there are ways that they can make a really compelling and impactful programming around ensuring that colleagues and managers in particular are better equipped, are know at least the basic things, not to say the basic things not to do.
mm,
That was like, feeling as though I was just barely getting my feet beneath me and then just getting knocked on my ass all
yeah,
over again. That was
yeah,
returning to work for me. And I should have, after day one, the things that I went through, should have just walked out that door and left. But instead, I decided to endure 4 years of absolute nonsense. Um, anyway, that gets into a completely different
yeah,
setting and scenario, but it all
yeah,
started there of
yeah.
returning
And
from
then
bereavement.
it's really interesting that you say that because I was a business owner and my company, I had 250 employees in the UK. And I can say, as a business owner who's lost a child, my business office is not ready for somebody like me to come in.
Mhm.
So I'm sitting on the other side of the fence as an employer
Yeah.
saying, who's experienced this, saying that I wasn't there. And so we put in certain, so we got our HR to, get some outsource that element of it. Before there were a couple of employees who gone through similar, and I would just sit down with them and I would tell the managers and what have you, look, this is what you have, because having gone through myself, had no formal training of anything,
Mhm.
but this was the biggest gap. You're absolutely right that the businesses and companies are just not geared and equipped for this sort of thing, which is so true. I want to move on to sad dads. You got it behind you, sad dads. Yeah, how did this happen? I mean, and I'm just gonna let the viewers know that I'm part of that community. I joined, I think in September, October last year. And my God, even 20 years in, what you guys have done, it's phenomenal. So just let's start from where, where, how did this come about?
So after I lost Lila through a mutual friend who was also someone we had gone to college with, and again, Jay and I, we both had stillborn daughters in the same calendar year of 2017. He was 11 months before me in January. I was in December. We went to a small liberal arts school called Bowdoin College in Maine, and it's a small school. It's a tight-knit community. People are very passionate about having gone to Bowdoin, and so this network stays with you. One of our friends from Bowdoin introduced us to another dad who was someone we hadn't met, but he was married to a woman who went to Bowdoin. Her sister was the same year as Jay and me. Um, she was 2 years behind us. But Chris didn't go to Bowdoin, but Chris was also living in Portland, Maine at the time. And we heard through a mutual friend that he and his wife had lost their daughter, Isabel, and that she was stillborn at 37 and a half weeks. And this was in July of 2018. So in the span of 18 months, and in less than 18 months, the oh no, I'm not mathing that right. Oh my gosh, that's embarrassing. But anyway, in under 2 years, the three of us had all experienced stillborn daughters. So we were introduced to Chris. The three of us started spending a lot of time together. We were on a text chain together, and spending time together was wonderful, but so was knowing that they were there. Even if I wasn't talking to them or I wasn't with them in that moment, that reassurance, that relief of knowing I have guys who get it. If something's bothering me at work, if I'm having trouble at home, if I'm just struggling with grief, even if they aren't right in front of me in that moment, even if I'm not actively texting them or on the phone with them, I knew I could reach out to them. And that is really what sparked for us this, you know what? This is actually incredibly special that we have this relationship, that we have this tripod, this dynamic, this support system within one another. And it dawned on us, and we did some research online and very quickly came to the conclusion and the actualization of there aren't other organizations like ours out there. There is nothing focused, community based on men's mental health, especially when it comes to bereaved fathers. There are similar kind of local chapter things going on here and there throughout the country, but not with the type of consistency that we felt this type of community would need in order to help really guide them through unbelievably complex grief and trauma. And that's it. That was the impetus. The dynamic among the three of us was really what made us think, you know what? We're so lucky to have one another. I bet there are a lot of guys out there who are going through what we've gone through and don't have anyone in their community. They don't have a single loved one who has ever been through something like this. So they don't have that same support. They don't have that same reassurance, that guide. And as I say, an idea for a community is exactly that. It stops there. It takes people showing up and not just showing up, but continuing to show up to actualize. And that is what made Sad Dads Club what it was. And we, on March 1st, 2022, so just over 4 years ago at this point, by 4 years and 2 days ago, we started a website. And this was before we were a nonprofit. Jay always mentions that we, have wanted to become a nonprofit. I don't remember that, but maybe he's right. But I have no recollection of that part of our plan. But we started saddadsclub.com. We're now .org because we are a nonprofit. And we opened an Instagram account. And I had gotten off social media entirely. It was too
Right.
triggering for me. I didn't want to think bad things, negative thoughts about somebody celebrating the most joyous, miraculous thing in their life. And I just didn't want to be triggered. I didn't want to put that energy into the atmosphere. I got off social media. It never occurred to me to check to see, are there tools, resources out there for grief? And once I got back on because I wanted to start a Sad Dads Club Instagram because we thought, hey, maybe social media could be a good tool for promotion. It looked like there was this whole corner of Instagram that was dedicated to grief support and bereaved
Yeah.
mothers mainly, I will say. There were a lot
Mainly.
of
Yeah.
different groups, but there still wasn't anyone else doing the bereaved dads thing in the way that we were envisioning with these regular virtual meetings, with these in-person meetups, with really generating and generating sounds bad. I don't know, generate a community, forming, building, nurturing a community. And that engagement just very instantly was we got a lot of guys reaching out. We got a lot of guys who were saying, this is exactly what I needed. I needed to know there were other guys out there who were dealing with this. I needed to read stories about other guys who have been through this and hear that I'm not the only one and be able to relate to something because right now the world for me feels like something I can't relate to. I feel like an alien. I feel like I'm from another planet because nobody in my community, nobody in my town, nobody that I know has ever gone through anything like this. And I'm so glad that there is now this voice. One of these um, grief support groups that is geared towards supporting mothers through child loss is called SAILS. It's an acronym for stillborn and infant loss support. And the woman who runs SAILS is named Sadisha, and she reached out via Instagram and sent me this little flyer to reach out to the Sad Dads Club. It must have been like within the first 2 months. And it was this Lost Dads open hour. It was a one-off. It was one thing that sales was going to host. They had three facilitators. And I was like, oh, this is like exactly like what we wanted to try and do. Like, let me go and check this out. And I checked out sales and I knew that it was geared towards the moms, but they were trying to do something for dads. So I signed on late, which I hate doing, but I was late to the Zoom. And there was a group of about 15 guys with these three moderators, and some of these guys were the same point I was, which when we started Sad Dads Club, I was about 4 years removed from my loss. And
Mm.
I had dads who were like right there with me, but you would have thought they went through it yesterday. I mean, they were a wreck
Wow.
because they had never talked about it. They didn't have anybody that they just didn't bring it up. They didn't want to rock the boat with their spouse or partner because they felt like they were doing better. And they had never processed or confronted or even talked about like they're in their car. I'm talking like ugly crying, like full-blown inconsolable, endless tears. And what everybody was asking at the end of that was, when's the next one? When's the next one? And so I reached out and Sadija was like, we didn't have another one planned. This was a one-off. Maybe we can try and figure something out. And I immediately messaged her afterwards. And again, we weren't a nonprofit yet. We didn't have a Zoom license. And I said, we will facilitate a monthly Zoom for dads, but can we use your Zoom account? And so Sadija and I like had a few meetings just to talk about how it would work, how do we track registration, just go over all the nuts and bolts of facilitating this type of thing. And Chris J and I agreed that like we will be there to host it and said like doesn't matter if no one shows up. We're going to do the third Thursday of every month and
Right.
one of us will be there because even if no one shows up, there are guys out there who maybe weren't ready to show up, but they
Yeah.
knew in their mind that's there. And
Yeah.
that has been like our ethos and our mindset from the beginning. It's like we're not going to do something, we're not going to finish, we need to be reliable and consistent. And so that with thanks to sales and their support of us early on and their belief that we would be reliable and consistent and steadfast in our showing up, that was the springboard to kind of get more dads face to face using the internet and using Zoom. And it grew eventually from being something we did monthly to twice a month to every week. And after about 2 years, I left my full-time job to focus on Sad Dads Club full-time. In that 2 year period, we had become a nonprofit. We became a
Right.
nonprofit in April of 2023. So a little over a year after we started, because we realized there's more we could do here. Let's
Mm.
keep doing the non-clinical stuff, but let's also make sure that dads have seamless access by removing financial and logistical barriers to quality professional mental health services. Because we ourselves are not clinicians. We don't have those credentials. We don't have that background. We don't have that training. Um, and yeah, it
Yeah.
grew very organically, very steadily.
Yeah, I mean, one of the questions I want to ask, how did you find the fathers? But you've kind of answered that already, and you've obviously had a little bit of support from other organizations, which is always great. I mean, partnerships are fantastic, as you and I
Yeah,
know.
they're everything.
Yeah, they're everything. I guess this part, I'm really interested in finding out. What was the hardest part of building this, and what's been the most rewarding? Because I think, you are a grief survivor transitioning to a community builder. I mean, that is phenomenal from Lila. That's the gift. That's the way I look at it. Hashim
Yeah.
was a gift to me. Lila's a gift to you.
Yeah.
It's a phenomenal thing that you've done with her love right in the center of your heart.
Hardest part, not enough hours in the day. That I will like there just isn't. And with the
Yeah,
limited resources and with a we run a very lean ship and I have contracted help now, including you, to offer more programming, but it was just it's like not enough hours in the day. And then you know what though? I bet we could get around that if someone gave us $1 million. That might help a little bit more too. But even still, I think we're doing great with what we got. We have a lot of support from people like you who join the community and then come up with meaningful ways to help us expand our programming. But I'll stick with that answer of not enough hours in the day. The funding is going to come. We had a great year last year and are so grateful that we can now do more thanks to the generosity of people who believe in the work and know firsthand the impact that it's having. The most rewarding thing is preserving a space. So this it's two part. Having a space where all these dads can come so that their child is not forgotten, that they can hear their name, that other dads know that child's birthday, that other dads know that child's story, their symbols. And I think that amplifies that child's presence, where otherwise it becomes and feels so limited. And when you're going through that first year of grief after year one, people stop asking as much. People stop checking in as much on how you're doing. And knowing that there is a space where we all are able to celebrate, honor, and remember our children, that's huge. I can't articulate, I can't quantify how incredible that is. Similarly, I can't really quantify, articulate how incredible it is to see a transformation in these dads who are walking through those doors, some of whom are entirely resigned to the fact that nothing can help with what they're dealing with because it is so painful, it is so deep, it is so complex.
yeah,
And then watching them get better, and I put that in air quotes because there is no getting better from this, but there is kind of returning to a life that's worth living and one that has joy and light and happiness in it. And I see the support that all these dads provide for one another to help these newer dads get to a point where they are experiencing relief again and they are
mm,
experiencing happiness again. And further, they are learning new ways to connect with and associate their child that are not just rooted in this profound sadness. I think that we all look for as men this invitation, this permission to feel relief because, and I think the second part is true of all bereaved parents that it almost feels comfortable, not comfortable, that's the wrong word. It feels like you need to stay in this cycle of pain, that you need to stay feeling really sad because that's the most intense emotion that you associate with your child in the wake of losing them. So when you start to feel a little better, when you start to feel relief, when you smile or laugh again, there's this like, oh, shut it down. You can't do that because that's a betrayal to the child's memory.
yeah,
That means you're not as connected. But I don't think that's true at all. And what I've seen from the dads is that you will find ways that are fulfilling for you, that are beautiful, that are incredible that you will then associate with your child. And it's not only rooted in this deep, complicated grief and sadness, but it's in these things that fulfill you. It's in these beautiful things outside that you start to associate them with, whether it's in nature or an activity that you love, you start to share that with them. I love telling this story because about a year ago, there was a dad in I believe this happened over Zoom, but it also may have continued in Discord. But there was a dad who had mentioned that running, he's an avid runner and he loves running and it's good for him and it's what gives him it's what fulfills him and he knows it's healthy, so he loves it. But he couldn't bring himself to put his running shoes on since losing his son because he couldn't. He didn't know why, he couldn't articulate it, but he just couldn't do it. And another dad mentioned to him that he had the exact same issue, and that he then decided that whenever he went out and ran, that was going to be the time that he spoke to his son. And so that completely flipped the script for how doing something good for you then became a bonding opportunity with your
yeah,
child. And that's
yeah,
like that insight and that shared experience of struggling to re-engage with something that you know is good for you, that you historically have loved, but you can't seem to get yourself to do in the wake of losing your child, can then, by hearing from another lost dad, in an
Yeah.
instant, it changes it. And that was
Yeah.
just that kind of thing. There's so many examples of, and that is all rooted in and all attributed to how incredible the Dads and Sad Dads Club are, how eager to support one another they are. We always tell each other, like, oh, be gentle on yourself, be gentle on yourself. And then we have a hard time being gentle on ourselves. And
Yeah.
so it's always like, guys, we're saying this to each other. We also have to embrace that too,
Yeah.
because we would say that if we were not ourselves, somebody else would be saying that to us. We would say
Yeah.
that to someone else. And that's the magic of Sad Dads Club. That is what makes it this uniquely special community. It's this eagerness from all these dads to support one another. And that results in a transformation from despair, profound grief into once again a life that feels familiar because they can return to these things that they once loved. And that transformation, experiencing that is something I'll never be able to absolutely succinctly put into words or even maybe adequately articulate because it is so. And that's like when that happens, when I hear those kinds of things, when I see those kinds of things, that's like, how do we reach the dads who don't know about us yet? Because this is something that they all need. I think it's not going to work for everybody, but it works for most dads. And I think that I'm like, how do we get out there? What else can we do to reach these people? What other platforms or channels or media coverage can we get? Because we have it right here. This can help so many people, and that's the most motivating and rewarding thing that I've ever experienced.
It's incredible to just to listen to you speak about it. And every time, a dad, I join the weekly calls, and every time a dad shares a story or whatever they want to contribute, and again, listening to you, is I always think about, wow, where have they come from? And look at them now. And a lot of these guys I don't know, but I can relate to it because of my own loss. And
Right.
and it's phenomenal just to listen to you because obviously I know you a little bit better, but I mean, Sat Dads is it's a comprehensive ecosystem. You think about
Mhm.
it, and I think the central part of to me is that once the dads realize that they can give themselves permission, it's that permission giving, life changes, and it's as you said, it's not a fixing. It's there. It's not a fixing. This is not about fixing. And I always, you've heard me say this that, and people have said this to me, and I'm sure I've said this to you, and I know other dads have, that move on. You don't move on. It's moving with, and that's where
Mhm.
this ecosystem comes in. It allows you to move with your grief, to understand who you are, to be able and that takes me really nicely on to, what Sad Dad actually provides. So if you can quickly just run through for somebody who's listening, looking for a support ecosystem, what is it that Sad Dad provides? What can they expect?
I always say in short that we provide grief support, both non-clinical and professional, for fathers who have lost children. And more specifically, we have our weekly Zoom session. We have a 24/7 um, private Discord channel that we don't just, yeah, that's another thing that's become a lifeline for our community because it's active all the time and it's got dads all over the world. We pay for up to 6 sessions of therapy with mental health professionals who specialize in child loss and grief. So we partner with therapists that we know have experience treating people who have gone through what we have gone through so that we know that we're sending people to somebody who is uniquely qualified to treat them for what we know they're going for. We also host retreats twice a year. We've historically done them in Maine, but this year we're doing our first on the West Coast in California in Lake Arrowhead. And then we'll have our fall retreat in Maine. We're also looking to offer more small group opportunities like the Still Dad letter writing journey that we are wrapping up actually tonight with our bonus round. That was the first cohort. And I think that within the non-clinical side of things that we offer, there's in-person engagement opportunities through our retreats or our regional events. And then we have our weekly Zooms, but we also want to start offering more of these small group opportunities that are focused on something specific for multi-week period.
Mm.
We also just launched on Sunday a fatherhood after loss group, which is made for, again, another small cohort and is being also hosted by a lost dad. And this is focused on for a group of dads who, six dads in this cohort who have lost a child and subsequently have a healthy living child at home, ages 0 to 24 months. So a newborn to 24 months. And this is an important group to pay attention to and to give a space to walk through the complexities of joy and grief coexisting because we can't really talk about that too much and too in depth in Sad Dads Club during our regular meetings because not all dads have living children.
Yeah, yeah.
Some are struggling with fertility and are just not there yet in their journey. And so we don't want to alienate everyone. So, really, when it comes to our bigger groups and our weekly Zooms, we try and focus on things that are more universally applicable and that deal mostly with how grief has informed life after loss. And we do have dads who haven't only experienced perinatal loss. We have dads who have lost an older, even adult child. And I do find that while it is a majority of perinatal loss stories, that circumstances under loss is not a barrier to connection. I think that focusing on how grief impacts our life is something that, regardless of the circumstance, is something everyone can connect on and found like how it impacts your career, how it impacts relationships, and just how essentially you're living with this invisible weight that you're carrying around every single day and how it makes you feel like a different version of yourself and navigating that, managing it, dealing with it, and having an audience there to hear you and to validate what you're going through. So, yeah, just grief support is what we want to provide, and we feel like none of us are clinicians. We keep doing our non-clinical side, but we also need to make sure that we're looking this year to actively and very largely expand our professional mental health support program. Last year was the pilot program. We have the data to show that it is helpful. So now we're partnering with more therapists across the U.S. and beyond to make sure that we have qualified therapists everywhere. We want to be able to offer it to people no matter what state they're in to go meet in person. Um, and so not enough hours in the day. Back to what's the hardest, but
Yeah, but it is actually incredible because the it's the ecosystem that you guys are building, and you're now looking at sort of verticals on how to manage different scenarios where the dads are sitting. I mean, I had three living kids when Hashim passed away, and I know it's one of the hardest, most difficult conversations to explain to my three boys that the brother's not going to come home,
Mhm.
and so I could have done with a lot of support there. How do I approach it? And
Yeah.
thankfully, God has given me a brain to think I made the right decisions at the right time.
Mhm.
Because one of my sons spoke to me very recently and said, Dad, if you had stopped us or not allowed us to meet him, that would have been a huge problem. So, and I'm sure you can think of the same thing where you've made certain decisions when everyone is saying, no, go that way, you went this way, and that's just something that, I think is God given to all of us. And we have choices. Um, it's interesting because you talk about this non-clinical side of things, and I have we've both partnered in a pilot, which is the letter writing, and I can vouch. I mean, I've been looking at the data and the feedback. It's been phenomenal for me. It's about fulfilling that cup. It's filling that cup
Yeah.
basically. I've got one here which from a dad, and it says, writing has uncovered ruminating around the recesses of my brain. I mean, it's allowed people to really think, and that's what Sad Dad has done. It's allowed these dads to actually think about and understand their grief, and it's phenomenal to watch and to be part of. I mean, from a letter writing perspective, you've taken part in it. What's the one big takeaway for you that 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 would be that kind of highlights for you?
It's such a different approach to put a pen to paper and not to your actual thoughts as we've talked about that things slow down and become almost not easier to process, but process from a different perspective because it's a more slowed down one. And I personally, I spend so much time in this space. I mean, it's effectively 24/7 for me. There is no clocking out at the stage that we're at. And there's always a new dad reaching out who needs to be onboarded. There's always some external potential partner reaching out, or there's always some major donor or corporate sponsor. Like it's nonstop. And so it's very easy for me to get caught up into the building an effective and sustainable nonprofit, which I don't want to say removes me from what the mission, from what like my personal experience is, but this slows it down. And this really becomes a space where I can back up and look over the last 8 years and really see in a clear way the evolution of my emotions in ways that my perspective has changed and in ways that it's, I think, going to be the exact same forever. The latter of those two just being this deep longing and love for my daughter, that is time does not lessen the degree of that love and that longing whatsoever. Living with it longer and hearing from other dads and knowing I'm not alone and knowing that there are other people out there thinking about Lila, that part that makes it easier to live with because she feels real. She's not forgotten. She is remembered. But doing something like actually in such a digital age, and I love writing. I was an English major in college and I don't do enough of it. And so this forced is the wrong word, but this carved out time and space to do it. And I just encourage everyone to do it because it's such a different approach. And the world slows down, your emotions slow down, and they also become more vibrant. I just feel them in this process of getting the words out. I feel those feelings so much more deeply, and it's good to be in touch with that. And as painful as some of them are, and as emotionally evocative as they can be, hope I use that word right, then it's still so worth it. I mean, crying is a release.
It
We're
is.
so naturally conditioned to hold back crying. Like every time I'm crying, I'm also holding back crying.
Yeah.
I'm never just like bawling crying.
Yeah.
I don't know if ever in my life I've ever bawling cried. I don't think I've ever cried without the holding it back part being there, which
Yeah.
is fascinating. But with the letter writing journey and with that first session, I was like,
Yeah.
forget the holding back part. Just like let it go. And it was tears falling onto a page. And the prompt was what happened.
Mm.
And I took it in different ways of like what happened, which is an unexplainable and unanswerable question because it shouldn't happen. No medical diagnosis, no medical conclusion can ever make it make sense because it shouldn't have happened. You are supposed to, in a developed country or in 2026, I should say, I mean, you are supposed to have a living child that far
Yeah.
along. You are
Yeah.
supposed to detect anything that's wrong. And in modern medicine, again, I'm not a clinician here. So for anybody listening who's like, well, there are these variables, but whatever, you're not supposed to have, this isn't supposed to happen. And
Yeah.
no, nothing can prepare you for it. And that process of just letting those tears fall to the page was so cathartic and so therapeutic. It's sort of like, oh, I should probably do this, once a month or something, or like this should be something that it releases so much because there's so much in there and you're carrying around so much. When does anyone ever really make the time or space to be with those feelings and to write them out
Mm.
and to just go that deep? You go
Yeah.
deeper with writing.
Yeah, definitely. And I've said this, in our conversations that, you write so beautifully. And not only do you write beautifully, you narrate it so beautifully. I mean, we were all in tears when you were sharing. And, at some point in your life, you got to write a book, just putting it out there.
Ugh. Maybe
I know time. I know
ChatGPT can do
time.
it for me.
I know time is an issue, but you got to make time because you would
Yeah.
you would you would provide an incredible space, a service to the dads. The way you express and the way that you narrate, it's so one, write it, two, put on Audible so that they can hear your voice because you have a very soothing voice also, which is
Oh, thank you.
and it just blends so beautifully to your writing. So think about it. Anyway, I'm gonna leave that, plant that little seed and leave it there. Um,
I hope it grows. It's always been a dream of
I
mine to
hope
write a
so
book.
too. I really do. I think you can be of service in a very different way
Mhm.
rather than what you're doing at the moment. And both are beautiful places to be in, I think. Um, Now, I'm just going to move on to, and I'm conscious of the time also, just moving on to something that's really interesting that you guys have launched in the last week or so.
Ah.
And I'm going to let you
Ah.
explain that.
No, please tee it up for me.
Okay, well, it's called Worst Club, Best Guys.
Mhm.
And I think it's what you guys have created. Um, it's a merch store. And
Yeah.
wow, wow, amazing. Tell us a little bit more.
I yes, Worst Club Best Guys has always been our tagline or our hashtag kind of when we started on social media. And I have to give absolute huge mountainous credit to Lucas's dad, Will, who is probably the most talented person I've ever met in my entire life. When he was at our first Zoom ever, and he and I have become so close. He is like a brother to me. He's about 10 years younger than I am, but he is the most unbelievably gifted artist and capable builder and thinker that I have. It's just, okay, I won't turn this into a gush fest on Will, but Will historically created these designs for us. One of them, when we were just getting started, he made this incredible portrait of every dad's child symbol that and incorporated all the names into it around our frowny face logo. And as a surprise, we had the shirts printed and we sent them out to all of the original dads. It was on a black shirt. On the back was the big design. Then we had the frowny face on the front breast. And then we started doing retreats, and we would get all the dad symbols for their children, and he would make these incredible designs, some that would incorporate the setting of the house, some that would just be this collage. And they were just, I mean, every time I see these dads who have been to a retreat, they're like wearing that shirt. Like it was every dad's favorite shirt. And on our most recent retreat, we were planning to go through a guy who had done the printing here in Portland, Maine. Lucas's dad, Will, had done the design. We had it all ready to go. And the guy just stopped responding. He effectively disappeared. He, this guy in Portland who was the printer, he ghosted us. Like he wasn't at his shop anymore. He had moved, like he was gone. And the
Wow.
retreat was about 2 weeks away. And I'm on the phone with Will and I'm like, dude, I don't know what to do. This guy is historically always the guy who printed our t-shirts has always been incredibly responsive. We hang out regularly. He's a friend of mine. He's gone. Like this isn't like, hey, we'll hear back from him. He'll come through. He was gone. And so Will is like, okay, you know what? I have a friend here in Maryland who has a print shop. I can ask him for a favor. We can get these printed. And the more that we were, and he did, Will got it done for the most recent retreat, which was last October in Maine. And we started talking more. And we had always been toying with making a merch store because dads were like, do you have any merch? Do you have any merch? I want to see, how do I get a shirt like that? Historically, it had just been the retreats. They would be our gift to the dads who attended. And we were going to go through this guy to set up a merch store, but he disappeared. And we were going to play around with a dropship company, but that the margins on that were terrible and it was so impersonal. And this was just something that Will was like, dude, let's just do it ourselves. The way we've done everything else leading up to now, he's like, I can do this. Like I can get us started. I know exactly what we need. I've done this before. I can do the production side. I've managed a web store before. I
Wow.
front to back, like, and he was like, why don't we call it, instead of just putting it online as like on our website, Sad Dads Club has a merch store, let's start a clothing line. Let's make it something that is an extension of us and where 100% of net proceeds, it's another arm of fundraising for us. It's another way that people can support us and know that
Yeah.
their contribution to high quality, incredibly beautifully designed merchandise is going to help continue providing grief support.
Yeah.
And I said yes. Said let's do this. We maintain all creative control. We have no third party anyone to worry about. And because we're printing it ourselves, that means we can have so much fun with the designs that we make. We can make any number of designs, put them online, anytime they're ordered, they're printed. So we're never sitting on inventory. We don't have a
Yeah.
design that we think is cool, print 150 of them, only three of them sell. It's like, we buy the blanks. We have a print shop space and we can do things like start a legacy collection. The first
Yeah.
legacy item that dropped was the Olivia hoodie, which has been the best seller so far, which is inspired by Olivia and Olivia's dad, Pat, who was at the two most recent retreats, told us a story about his tattoo about a butterfly with a broken wing that was this symbol for Olivia. And that just stuck with Will. And he made an incredibly beautiful design based around that. And we're off and running. And we're just
Yeah.
like, we keep it all DIY. I grew up in an independent music community listening to punk music, and that was the entire thing was community and do it yourself. Something's not there that you want there, do it yourself. Don't rely on someone else to do it for you. And that so far has served us well. And that is what we're continuing on with building Worst Club Best Guys. And we can make merch that we can say is genuinely front to back designed by, produced, manufactured by, and shipped by a sad dad. It's front to back
Yeah.
operationally ours.
I mean, you've thread the story right through it. Yeah,
Yeah,
of a sad dad, basically, which is ingenious. I mean, that's genius. It really is. It's fantastic. And what's I know the answer to this, but I'm going to ask it. What's been the response?
it's
It's
great so
Yeah,
far.
yeah,
I think people are also just thrilled that, okay, Sad Dads Club finally has merchandise, but even a step beyond that, they're starting a clothing line. Like this shirt that I'm wearing, this shirt is called the sibling shirt. On the front, this is the Sad Dad's face as drawn by my 6-year-old son, Dallas. And on the back, there are nine,
Oh yes, yeah, yeah,
there are nine different siblings of children who died too soon who wrote out Sad Dads Club. And we just have it down there. And it's called the Siblings T-shirt. Like we can do awesome stuff
yeah, yeah.
like this, and we can be as creative as we want.
And
And we can
you're not limited, you're not
at all.
shackled, because I know with suppliers, it's okay, what's the MOQs, what's the minimum quantity orders, all that sort of stuff, but you can just do it the way you want to do it. And it's fantastic.
And
I,
Will's got it all set up.
yeah,
He's got the wholesale accounts with the different providers of always can't do anything but high quality either. We want people wanting to wear this all the time because not only does it look good and is meaningful, but it feels good from a garment perspective. And he is so dialed into that. Going right back to gushing over Will, but he is really truly, were it not for him, we couldn't do Worst Club Best Guys. Hard stop. He is a unicorn in that
yeah,
he is so creative, so tenacious, and so driven that
yeah,
he will front to back do it. We ran
yeah,
into so many hurdles that a majority of people would have been like, this is too much, forget it.
yeah,
But for him, he's like, let's get right through it. We already
yeah,
we got through another hurdle. Let's get through another. Let's do it
yeah,
because this is a monument. This is something tangible for our children. And that is so motivating for him and for me. And that is so motivating for us that we get to incorporate our children into this flag for them, like into wearing something that represents them so that
yeah,
people will ask about it too. That someone out there, when I'm wearing a shirt that says Sad Dads Club on the back 9 times, be like, I have to ask, what is Sad Dads Club? It's kind of like almost a tongue-in-cheek thing. They're like, is that like a anyway, it's
yeah,
I'm so excited. I'm so just eager to keep growing it because I think the more designs we do, the more symbols we incorporate, just the more special it will be. And it belongs to all of us. The same
yeah,
way that everything with Sad Dads Club
yeah,
is, this is no different. And that's why maintaining 100% control and making this 100% in-house is the only way we could do it.
yeah, yeah. And for those who, and I will share all the links for the Sad Dads website and the website for for the Worst Club Best Guys. I'll share that in the description. And just to let you guys know also that there's Rob who's actually catwalking all the clothing. So, he's
No, that's Will in the pictures on the website.
there's Will and then there's you also.
I got one image and you can see why. My modeling career had a short runway. I just like kind of it's
Yeah.
it was about getting the product photo, but that
Yeah.
picture of me is
Yeah.
terrifying.
Okay.
Will is far better suited for modeling.
But I mean, it's an amazing website. It's so cool. And I'd like to try to sort of wrap up. Look, 8 years in, it feels like you've done a lot. And how do you carry Lila now? I mean, what sort of legacy do you want Lila to have and to be? Because she's inspired so much in you.
I I think I view it more as whenever I see a new dad come in, whenever that dad has shared his story, that I feel like her community is growing, that she is not alone wherever she is. And I have no strong religious beliefs at all. I do consider myself a moderately spiritual person, not overly spiritual, but I do believe that she is a part of this, and so is every child. So I know that's not answering the question of what do I want her. This is all this would have never happened without her. And to know that there is such good happening and such an impact happening in the world, were it not for Lila, Isabel, and Bella, and that dynamic that their three dads, the connection that we were able to form, I think that legacy of them providing this hope, providing this relief, providing this comfort is everything and more I could possibly ask for. She's omnipresent. She is a part of everything that we do, as is every child. And that's to me is that's the magic in it because it is all of ours.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm the one going out and talking to people. And yes, I'm the one who people will reach out to, but I'm a representative of the community. I am nothing singularly. We are everything together.
It's amazing, and I can really vouch for that because I am part of that community, and I watch it every week. The way you show up for all of the dads, and it's phenomenal. Rob, I have to thank you for your time.
Oh my goodness.
It's
Thank
been
you.
it's been this 1 hour has just shot by. I wish I could have a
I did.
little. I wish I could have a little bit more time. There's more I wanted to ask you. Maybe we should do a second one at some
We'll do
point.
part two.
Yeah, yeah.
I
Um,
will, yes.
Definitely do part two because I think it'd be great to see later on towards the end of this year where Sad Dads is and where all of us are.
Yeah.
So Rob, thank you so much. Thank you for sharing Lila. I think that's been huge, and I love your story.
Thank you.
For building Sad Dads Club, I mean, phenomenal for showing up in the letter writing journey pilot and for trusting the process. I mean, that's huge for me personally. And for creating something that makes fathers' grief visible, a safe place for all those fathers and where they can set their grief down safely. I think it's phenomenal. And to everyone listening, if you want to contact Rob, I am going to drop the link of saddadsclub.org in the description. And if you want to support their work or wear their identity as a grieving father with pride, then I'll drop the link also for Worst Club, Worst Best Guys in the description. And if you're interested in the letter writing journey, again, you can contact Rob if you're part of the Sad Dads Club. Or I'll drop the link for my website also. It's there. All I have to say, Rob, thank you once again. It's been incredible. And this is Still Dad Talk. Being a dad doesn't end when your child dies. Until next time.